Coding for controls. This is, I believe, part 4 of our presentation, lesson 2 for today. How do we do the coding? This is actually the best part of the presentation. This is where we actually do make the controls do something, right? All right. So we've got a bunch of things here. When we talk text boxes, again, and I actually asked this question at the beginning of this class is, hey, I've got my text box. I want to change the text. I'm actually changing the text. But when I do my calculation, how do I translate the text from a string? I've got a decimal, and we're going to talk variables probably next week, I believe. And can you believe it? We're taking before we get to the variables, we're probably going to go next week. And normally in most programming languages, we would have tackled today. I would have tackled most likely you would have been done. You would have had all your syntax, your variables, your loops, your stuff, everything would have been done one day. The reason why we're going so slow is because we're linking these things, the standard stuff that you're going to learn, or that you know already as a programmer. You know that about loops. You should know about variables. You should know about some object-oriented programming by now, hopefully. And all we're doing is we're linking these things to a UI, right? Now, you might say, whoa, man, this is like really low-level stuff, Tom. How does this make any sense for my career? Well, you know what? The UI stuff we're doing here, believe it or not, it translates to every aspect of every other application, every other framework you could possibly think of. It's exactly the same, pretty much, except for some changes in syntax. Okay? So that's where the usability is here. So here we're just assigning an actual string to a text box, a message box, a date. If we want to clear, there's a clear method where we can clear a box, or we can also set it to the empty string value. Okay, there's different options we can do, in C# or VB. Okay, resetting the focus. We talked a little bit about that with some of you. Obviously, this is wrong. See, I forgot to take this out. Remember, when you see these little marks, it really means this. So I just forgot to take it out for VB. And I apologize. You're also going to have a semicolon. Does this work? Name text box dot focus equals to parentheses.
No, it's just supposed to be like parentheses, like they call the method after focus.
Correct.
Yeah, I was going to say that would be.
This is wrong, and this is part of our presentation. That's why I've asked you that it should be like this, right? Focus, right? And the thing is, all this does is sets the focus to that particular text box. I'm glad someone picked it up. And the other classes that I've had before, I've gone by and I've gone, does this look right? Yeah, it does, right? And we can tell someone's glazed over, right, when they're looking at it, because they're going, yeah, it's fine, Tom, it's good, we'll carry on, right? So yeah, you have to. It's a method. It's a method call. You can't make it equal to parentheses. It doesn't make any sense, right? So all we're doing is we're calling it. We're assigning a control focus. All we're doing is we're shifting focus so that the user input is going to go to that control. Now, if you shift focus to a label where there's no user input possible, it's just going to make it so that that control is highlighted. That's all that's going to happen. Okay. Oops. Moving on. Again, checked properties and so on. You can set them up in design time, if you will. And programmatically, again, it's true and false, lowercase. In most languages, it's like that, true and false, lowercase. Actually, it depends on the syntax, I'll be honest with you. For example, C++, I'm not sure if I can't remember now if it's lowercase or uppercase. At the end of the day, it's still a Boolean value, and it's really a 0 or a 1. That's what we're really calling for, right? So, if it's a red radio button dot checked is equal to true, really what we're saying is red radio button dot checked is equal to 1. It's on. It's either an on-off value. Okay, all we're doing is, and that property is limited. The Boolean property is limited to true or false. Okay, and again, you can set these properties, at design time. And you can also set it at runtime. So when you click on a control, then it changes the property as you go. And of course, this is what creates the interactivity that we need when we create these forms and controls, right? So here, why would we care to make things visible and invisible? Well, again, it gives us the flexibility to show or hide stuff on the form. Here's what I do not recommend. Do not layer 50 different things on your form, one on top of the other. It's going to be very challenging for you to create this, right? Yes, you can make them invisible, right? For example, you can make a whole, someone came up to me last time when we did this class in VB, and they said, Tom, do you mind if I wrote for assignment number 1, I wrote all the controls again in French, and they just have different names. So I just like hide the English one and show the French one, right? Oh, hey, they did that. And I said, well, functionality-wise, I can't tell the difference. Programming-wise, sucks. You know, it's a bad practice. Not really a good thing to do, right? We should change the text of the item, not the item itself, right? But you know, again, this is where we're talking from a level of programming perspective. The way people visualize things, does it satisfy my requirements? Yeah, it does. I didn't say that you got to change the text value so it displays French or English. I said the controls have to show French or English. So this person took it literally, right? Not the best practice, but a really ugly form for me to look at. Oh my God. I looked at it and I was like, what the hell is this? It was all over the place, French and English, and then, you know, he added Spanish in there, so he had like 3 languages, and there was all stuff all over the place, and I didn't know what to click in, you know, at all, right? But at the end of the day, it worked. So I don't recommend you doing that. Visible and invisible fields are there if you want to add, you know, you only want the user to see certain things when he's going through your form one thing at a time. The other thing that you want to try and do is enabling and disabling controls. This is more functional. But what happens when you disable a control? It kind of grays out, right? That's what happens. So graying out controls allows you to stop user, you know, continuing in the form entry process until he's got valid data. So when you're doing data validation, we were just talking earlier at the break with a couple of you guys, and you're saying, well, how do I validate data? And if you're doing multi-form documents, you're shifting from one form to the other, and you've got invalid data, you should really gray out your next button until you get all your valid data going, and then you enable to the next button to go on to the next form, right? Because that's good user experience. Same thing with changing the color of text. Guys and girls, I really recommend to you that this is like low-level stuff. Changing the color of the background text as you go programmatically. Chances are, all right, the user will not require you to change the color of your form. All right, chances are. Okay, but it's there if you want to do it at runtime. If you want to create a highlight, that's where you change the form. For example, let's say you want to highlight a box, a control, make it red, flash, do different things. Yes, these are the reasons for you to change the foreground, background, all that kind of stuff. But in practice, you got to think what's practical and what's ugly, right? We don't want to make the user experience ugly. We don't want you to do something just because you can do it. We want it to make sense. Okay, and again, if we look at this, you know, change color application, here's an example of that. I'll take you there, although I don't know why, but let's do it anyway. So File, Open, Project Solution, and then we'll, you know, go to Colors. And this is again up on the Blackboard for you if you really want to explore this. Here it is, and if I run it, again, it's going to start off. Oh, I forgot to change the property. So here I'm going to change start position to center screen, and here I'm going to save everything and then run it. So now it changed in the middle. Here's my form. And if I change my background, it shifts colors. I don't know why a user would need it, but maybe he requires this if he has some kind of application you're building that requires, you want to give the user the ability to change his background or customize his work environment for some reason. Okay. Shifting back to the PowerPoint. This is important, actually. One piece of this form I shouldn't discount, I shouldn't laugh at. And the piece that I shouldn't be laughing at is the use of this. All right, this is like the use of self or me or other objects in other language. It refers to the form itself. This namespace is what it really means. So this namespace is back color. It's going to be the color beige. That's what this line means, okay, in pseudocode, right? And this space's back color is going to be the color blue, as an example, right? That's what the this means. Again, it refers to this namespace, this form itself. Okay. That's the only piece of important news I have for you for that one. Okay, let's move on. Multiple properties of a control. Oh, here we come to the section that I dread. In VB and in other languages, you have a with statement, W-A-T-H, right? You do not have such a structure in C#. Why? Because it's ugly anyway, right? That's the honest truth. I would never use a with statement. If you really want to do it, all right, if you want to change multiple, this is changing a single control, and they're all title text box. You want to change the visibility, the forecolor, and the focus, as an example. In VB, you would have a with statement, with title text box, and then underneath that, you'd have a little code block, and in the code block, you put dot visible is equal to true, dot forecolor is equal to color white, dot focus. You don't have that in C#. How could you do it differently if you were doing it in C#? Is there a way you could simulate this if you really wanted to? Let's say if you had a really long property name, like title text box, as an example, might be a much longer name. Is there a way of doing it? Anybody?
Change the property name?
Change the actual, not the property name, the object name. You want to refer to an object.
Variable equal to whatever the namespace is?
Yes! That's the way to do it. You go var, I don't know, a short form like this one is called title text box, TTB, is equal to title text box. And then what it'll allow you to do, it points to this object, and so you can go ttb.visible, ttb.forecolor, ttb.focus. But do we really need to do that, guys? Chances are it types it all for you in ItalicSets anyway, right? So I don't see the point, right?
The purpose of having a good name for it anyway.
I agree with you 150%.
Then anyone that's reading is not going to
Not understand, unless you want to, I don't know, make your code cryptic somehow. So that's why I'm not showing you how to do it. Although it is up on Blackboard, if you really want to look at it. Concatenation. We talked about this already briefly, where you concatenate, or you take your first form, your name, and we add this name text box dot text. This is a very, I don't like it, put it that way. We're going to learn other ways of formatting label strings later on, but for now, this is fine. All it does is it takes one string, puts the other string, and slaps them both together and creates a big string. Okay, that's all it does. All right. So it's not, the plus operator here doesn't add anything. You know, you associate plus with adding something. All it does is it concatenates, or it adds on the end of. That's what this thing means. And this way, they say tacking text strings together. Yeah, it's good, but really ugly. And again, continuing along program lines, in other languages, for example, VB, you'd have to put like this underscore character in earlier versions of VB. One thing that you need to know for C# and C-based languages is the line doesn't end until you put a semicolon, right? So you can keep typing 5, 6, 10 lines deep, right? One big line of code. I don't know why you do something monstrous like that, because it's ugly and it's hard to read. But let's just say you need to, because maybe there's multiple properties you need to put in a line or something like that, or you need to pass in multiple arguments, variables, what have you. Then maybe you need to span different lines from a visibility perspective. You don't need to worry about spanning the lines. As long as you have a semicolon, that's when it accepts the final, that's one big line of command, right? All right, here's your hands-on programming that I'm going to give you for the second part of, or the last part of this thing. And I'd like you not to run away on me, even though it's 12:17. And yes, you could technically get up and leave, right? I would rather that we sit together, and I want you, this is a great practice for you for your exam, to try it out. Try do your hands-on programming assignment here in class, right? You have half an hour or so, right, where you could probably come up with it. Do it now. Try and figure out what this is saying. And one thing to note in your hands-on programming assignment is it gives you a couple things, okay? Every hands-on programming assignment. It says, here's your sketch. So this is what the form should look like. Imagine the client has given you this sketch, this wireframe, and said, this is what I want you to design exactly in this way, right? Now, there's no latitude here, right? If you're given a sketch like this, it's not like you have a choice to move things around and make it funky on your own. This is what you need to create. Someone else has created this sketch for you. Maybe it's been handed to you from a designer, what have you. So do it this way, right? So if you're given an opportunity, if you're given a design task example on an exam where I've given you a sketch, you do it this way. Don't stray from the parameters, even if it's ugly. Even if you say, why would Tom ask me to do such a monstrous job? This is like terrible, right? This is embarrassing, right? Doesn't matter. You have a client, and you're the programmer, and you've been given this as a project. You do it. Same thing when you're in the real world. Don't get funky. Follow the diagram. Okay, and this diagram also gives you the names of your forms and the elements for the forms. Okay. It also gives you your objects and properties, and this is what I'm looking for on your external documentation. At the very minimum, I'm looking for this. Okay, give me this on your external documentation for plan, objects, and properties. Example would be my main form, my property. Here's my name, my setting, main form. My main form, my property is text. You know, the text for my property for my name form is R&R reading for refreshment. Okay, and so on. Each of these objects and properties are in here. Okay. If I go to the next slide, it continues. Okay, and then it goes the event procedures. So I have my books radio button, check changed. What does it do? Here's the pseudocode. Display buy two, get the second one for half price, and the book's image. That is your pseudocode. So you are given these requirements by the client, and this is what you need to do. Now, I haven't given you the assets to complete this hands-on assignment. So your book image, download a book, okay, to make it work. A book image from the net. It's okay, right? It's not going to kill you. But this is the kind of stuff I want you to do. Okay, and here's the final form. So there's almost like a screen capture or a mock-up of the final form and what it should look like. Okay, so this is what typically I would be looking for exactly, actually, when you create your external document. At the very minimum marks here. You just pass, right? So you get your sketch, your objects and properties, and your event procedures outlined, as well as your final form, and you've satisfied a lot of the requirements. Yes, you were going to ask something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is just the class 4 slides have just been examples for how you want the final assignment, or the first assignment.
It's also your hands-on for today.
So we're building this?
Yes.
Right now?
Go. Yes, 30 minutes. You're not getting marked for it, but I'm asking you to do it for practice, please. So it kind of satisfies both requirements to your thing. And this is a good opportunity for you to practice. You probably know how to do this stuff. And if you can do it, the faster you can do it, the faster you can get out of here. Right? Or if you don't feel like doing it, you can go now. It's up to you. But this is the end of my video, and we'll have more discussions after.